You are watching Epic Sketch Time. My name is Mark Monlux. I'll be your host today. Um, I'm a freelance illustrator. I live in Tacoma, Washington. The link for my contact information is down here in the doobly-doo, as is any artist who comes and draws with us 3 times. With me are some regulars. Gentlemen, will you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Bill Morse. I'm a freelance illustrator and cartoonist, and I live in Seattle, Washington. And I do a webcomic called Rhapsodies, which you can see at the link in the doodly-doo at rhapsodies.wpmorse.com.
Hi, my name is Nguyen. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I am, I guess, a freelance artist, illustrator, and as you can see, I'm doing comic books this week. You can find me at either on Instagram or anything with Mad Monkey Love. That's pretty much it. That's my handle. Yep.
So look, you told us, but why don't you go ahead and tell the listening audience a quick description of the project you're working on.
Well, I'm working on currently I'm working on as a favor to a writer friend of mine. It's part of a anthology called Pub Crawl Comics, I think, or you can just hashtag that or at Pub Crawl Comic. The guys are pretty much, it's an anthology based on anything, all the stories are going to be thrown together based on pubs or bar or something that happens in a bar. So that's what the anthology is. And I believe they're planning to launch that in October, first or second week of October. And that's what I'm working on, is a story written by a friend of mine from Florida. His name is Christopher. I think he has a Instagram, but yeah. He's written a story called Out of Time. It's actually interesting because it's kind of like a Matrix-ish kind of timepiece kind of thing. So I don't want to give the story away, but yeah, it's about a character inside a bar who doesn't want to leave. And that's what I'm working on right now.
Very cool.
It's out of 8 pages. So what are you working on there?
Pretty much just some cleaning up some stock art from the strip. I had this is finishing up what is supposed to be Thursday's strip, and I mostly finished the art except for this figure here, and then I also had to put the background in.
Oh, looks like we got somebody else just joined.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it going?
All right.
Ian, we've just completed our introductions. Ian, why don't you give your introduction and what you're working on?
Hi, everybody. My name's Ian Castruita, and you can find my stuff over at unfedartist.com. Today, I'm working on another comic strip for my website. You can check out the previous ones I've done over on unfedartist.com.
Once again, I am working on a let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Another obscure monster alien.
Which one is this time?
It looks a bit like the close-up on the Puppet Masters, but they're not that obscure.
This one is called It Came Without Warning. This premise might sound kind of interesting to you guys. This alien comes to Earth for sport to hunt humans. Gee, doesn't that sound like something that's very popular right now?
Yeah.
So a lot of people said, but basically it looks like a very tall gray alien wearing a bunch of rags. But this is his killing thing. He throws it like a frisbee, and these long tentacles wrap around the person, and this thing usually goes into the face.
So kind of like a flying guillotine.
Kind of see these little things are like little suckers. So it just kind of grabs onto the face and
so it's ripping. So it's prematurely ripping off Predator and Alien.
Yep, it's
But I think this is way before that, right?
Oh,
yeah.
So much before it. If it wasn't so obscure, a lot of people would think, well, they're playing homage to it. But honestly, I'm thinking these guys didn't even see this thing. So, It Came Without Warning was one of those unique films that would show up in the not in the theaters, but usually in the drive-in theaters. You would get a lot of really lowbrow stuff hitting the drive-in theaters that even the small mom-and-pop places out in the boondocks, like say Alturas, California, which only has one theater that plays only one movie at a time. You may not have, they're probably going to skip It Came Without Warning.
I'm embarrassed to say I've never even actually been in a drive-in.
Oh my God.
Oh, Bill, I'm truly horrified.
I mean, I'd be curious about that one just outside of SeaTac, but I think that one's closed now.
You mean the Midway Drive-In?
I think so. The one that you can see when you turn on what is that highway?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's the Midway. I know they have a big swap. A lot of drive-in theaters have been turned into swap meets. We've got the one down here. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of mine. Mine's called, what's mine called? I can't remember now. So, guys, in your neck of the woods, was it by the car or was it by the person in the car?
By the car. I remember, but I was a kid back then. I think by the time I was like 16, 17, yeah, I was driving. I remember driving my dad's flatbed truck, and we had a bunch of guys in the back, and it was by the car. I remember that.
Are you asking like how they charge? Is that the question?
Yes, because I remember more than once having to go inside the trunk of the car to get into the drive-in theater.
Oh my God.
Which was not at all uncommon when our neck of the woods.
I thought that was only in the movies.
Oh, thank you for that.
I feel
You're culturally deprived, Bill.
Yeah.
I can just see Mark strapped to like the the undercarriage of the car, just like covered in soot and dirt, just like trying really hard to squeeze above the gravel of the road.
Oh, the cars back in those days, a Ford Galaxy had a lot more room in the trunk than the things these days. So. Now you could fit 2 or 3 people in the trunk. So.
Did you, Mark?
Not uncommon, but it's not uncommon at all.
Caramba. That's awesome. I guess that's the equivalent of bringing in your own concession snacks to movie theaters now. Well, probably not, but
we had a really nice place. There was a playground for the kids right underneath the big screen, so you could keep an eye on your kids while you were watching the movie. And the little kids would see how high they could get up to swing because they thought they could, some older sibling would be bound to tell them, yeah, if you swing hard enough, you can cast a shadow. So.
Yeah, that sounds like good times. There is a couple drive-ins in the Phoenix area, so I always kind of look at it and like, yeah, maybe, but what you're describing sounds fun. Like, and who knows how long they're going to be around too. So
I mostly assumed that what was left were relics out in the sticks.
Well, this was in the 70s, which was a pretty prime time for drive-ins. I think the last drive-in I went to, I could place it by the David Carradine movie I've watched. David Carradine was in some sort of naval sub movie, and that was the last one I remember seeing in the theater. So if I could figure out what that is on Internet Movie Database. But yeah, I saw lots of truly terrible films. What was the name of that one horror movie where the killer's in the house on the telephone?
I should know that. It's because
No. This is way. You're thinking Scream. He said Scream, but no, this is way before Scream. As a matter of fact, Scream is pretty much that opening sequence is pretty much an homage to this movie. Can't remember that one. But I remember seeing Octoman.
Octoman?
Octoman.
Oh, Octoman. Okay.
A truly horrible man monster that looked like an octopus. Basically, a guy in a rubber suit throwing himself up against an RV.
This sounds familiar. Was it in your last deck?
It was in my last deck, yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of, my I decided that my Inktober challenge this year would be another deck, another series of obscure movie monsters. And I've come up with quite the list.
I'd mostly been deciding to stick with the prompts this year rather than do my normal random thing.
Did Parker put out prompts already?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's on Facebook though.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it. Is there anything interesting in there, or is it
nothing much?
Nothing new, I don't think.
I kind of was going with the attitude of they don't look like much, but that's part of the challenge. But perhaps I'm giving it too much credit.
One of the local drawing groups I belong to, the Claw, has decided to put out its own list, and various members were suggesting ideas. And I suggested Not My Cat. I'm hoping that makes the cut. Have you seen these photographs on the internet where people post a picture of some cat in their living room on top of their TV, or spread out on their bed, and there's a guy's commenting, "Not my cat. Is this how you get a cat?"
I'm sure I've seen that meme. I'm not remembering anything specific at the moment.
One of my favorites is there's this picture of a guy's black television, not turned off, and there's a pair of green eyes coming off of it. And Says, went down to watch some late night TV, not my cat, and doesn't even know how most of the time these people have no idea how the cat even got in their house.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first time hearing this. So there's like just a massive phenomenon of cats breaking into people's houses, and it's just like,
yeah, if you go on the just Google it or do a hashtag not my cat, and you will find dozens upon dozens of images. So I'm trying to remember what color this thing was. I think it was kind of like a fleshy orange with bits of green. So I'll have to do a quick internet search.
Ooh, all of a sudden it's quiet.
So what were you guys talking about before I showed up? Nothing incriminating, I hope.
Oh,
Nah.
Like, nah.
Oh, I was invited to a local library here in Toronto to
nice.
It'll be like I guess the library con or fan con or something.
Oh, yeah. Did you mention, was that on your Instagram? That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I'm being invited, and I'm doing. They asked me to do a workshop for the kids at the library on digital painting. So
Nice.
I got like maybe 3 slides done. I just want to wing it. I think I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna do some download some pictures of like the Wacom tablets, the Herion, the cheap tablets, to the Microsoft Surface, to the iPad.
Right.
I'll talk about hardware, then I'll talk about the available software out there. So
yeah, that's something I've been looking into too. I mean, I've been tempted by the. I've been briefly tempted with the iPad Pro because I play with it enough times every time I'm down at the store. But
yeah,
at when Stowe was having his talk at his Cartoonist Northwest last month, of all the tablets he said of don't touch with a 10-foot pole, it was the iPad Pro, and so I've been kind of scared off for that reason.
Well, the iPad, there's the regular iPad right now that you can actually buy, the brand new one that you have to buy the pencil separately.
Right.
That will do the trick too, but again, it's a lot of the cases. A lot of the artists I notice who, if you're just using Procreate and you're just doing one drawing and
right.
stuff, it's fantastic. But if you plan to do comics out of it, it's file management and all this stuff. It could be just a lot more hassle than anything
right.
else. And that's where that is. And some people like the pencil, some people don't like the pencil. And the limitation of your software is like limited. Like you got Procreate and you got Clip Studio, unless you're doing some sort of vector base, which, you know, you have to download some sort of, I don't know, Adobe bastardized version of Illustrator or Draw or whatever it is that Adobe has on the iPad, because it's not full-fledged yet.
Right.
You draw on that, then you still need a computer to sync that to. Then from there, you can work from your desktop if you plan to go any further than that, right?
Right.
Then that's the case, but then a lot of people love Clip Studio for on the iPad. But again, it's one of those things where you got to pay either, Clip Studio has these things where it's like once every 3 months they have a sale where you can get the full software for $25.
Yeah, I mean,
the iPad you pay like $8.99 a month, right?
I was wondering why the heck they're doing that. Are they doing that? I was been wondering about their marketing strategy. Why are they doing a subscription for the IO9 when they sell it for the computer?
I don't know. They're implementing the cloud-based storage, which I don't use at all. They charge you by, I forget what it is they use for the cloud storage with the Clip Studio, that they have that software.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use it at all. And they have these things, these weird little things they're trying to implement and trying to catch on, like Clip Studio Gold. It's kind of like Coinbase, you buy so many gold to get textures and stuff like that, which I don't get it.
Yeah, because for the while I'd been saying that because I had several friends who swore by the Clip Studio that was on their
iPad?
They're old, not the iPads, their
PCs or MacBook
tablets. And so I was saying, okay, the instant they finally get an IO9 version of Clip Studio, that'll finally force me to get an iPad. But then when they play this game, it kind of confuses me.
Yeah, it bugs me too. Anything subscription based really bugs me. But
I mean, in theory, I'm not against subscription, but when it's subscription for one part of their services but not for the other, I mean that if they were doing subscription the way Adobe does subscription, I'd bite the bullet. But when it's only half of it, and so owning that, so it continues the argument for whether I need a tablet or not at all negotiable, that doesn't seem smart to me.
No.
Wasn't Stowe advocating for a Surface?
Yeah, he was. No, wait a minute. It was I think he was. Is that the Microsoft one?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually drawing right now on the Microsoft Surface.
I mean,
you get a full-fledged computer.
Yep.
It runs all the major programs. It's just as good, has just as much sensitivity and capability as anything else.
Yeah.
Costs about the same.
I mean, my only concern about it is not like I'm being the complete proponent of brand loyalty, but at the moment I'm kind of stuck as a Mac user. I mean, and not that's a bad thing, but that's I worry about the whole back and forth part.
Well, if you're going, one of the things, the only reason I haven't done it myself is I have yet to get onto the subscription service for Mac.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for Adobe.
Yeah.
And the moment I do, there's nothing. I think it just tells you how many devices you can have.
2. You're only allowed to subscribe to.
Yes. But they can be on on different platforms, can't they? You can have one being a PC and one being a Mac. So there you go. No problem.
Okay.
Yeah. They give you cloud storage too, which is kind of handy, but it's flaky. I find that because at the work, when I'm doing UX and stuff like that, I'm on my Mac, and I store stuff on there. Then when I get home, sometimes the Mac and the Adobe, sometimes it's just one version behind because it takes a couple weeks. And that's the thing that bugs me, is sometimes they update it too quick or too soon. So you end up with that. You can't open the file because, something. And you gotta figure out why. Oh, okay, I gotta sync and all this other stuff. They're trying to work it out, but a lot of the time I find that the Adobe software, like for example, I'm running Adobe on my Surface here, and every time I turn on Photoshop, I can hear the fan just revving up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adobe stuff is like even just running in the background, the Adobe Cloud services with the help files and stuff, you can just watch that thing eat your processor, right? And you're just sitting there idling too. And that's the issue. And I think Adobe's trying to solve a lot of that. That's why there's a lot of updates. They're trying to update and trying to streamline it. But every time they update Photoshop, it's always, oh, now you can do UX. Oh, now you can do photograph. Now you can do this. Now you can do that. You know, they're just, I just wish there was like paint mode and shut everything else off. And you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, because it's sort of like that's one of the reasons I haven't been forced to switch to subscribe yet, because since I'm most of my stuff is glorified colored line art, I don't need the Clark's Law stuff that all the fanciest version of Photoshop is.
Yeah, I miss the outright pay. You know, I have no problem paying for the full version, but that's why I'm sticking with Clip Studio. We use Photoshop at work because it's UI stuff. It's tied to.
I mean, at the moment, as far as the do things from scratch stuff, I find myself becoming more and more of a Clip Studio convert. I mean, and
I gotta say, the brush engine on Clip Studio is fantastic.
Yeah, and so as far as anything that involves doing something from scratch, I like Clip Studio better. It's not just how good the brushes are. There's a almost intuitive quality to it.
Yeah, I guess.
So the reason I'm considering, the reason I'm holding out from doing a subscription base, is because I have an old cheese grater of a Macintosh. And it's gotten to the point now where I can no longer do system upgrades.
Yeah.
The moment, and I also don't want to do any software upgrades, so I'm running CS4 because CS4 runs fine on it, just fine and dandy. But the moment that I upgrade to a bigger Mac or a newer Mac, I know that I'm going to have to upgrade past the CS4 because the CS4 simply won't run on something that advanced anymore. So, I'll just have to deal with that when I come to it. But I'm holding out for as long as possible.
I know the feeling.
But I'm already starting to get a couple clients being a little grumbly that I don't have the most current version of things.
Well, just charge them for it, so that way you can get it.
It's hard for me to argue with an argument that I use all the time when I talk to Bill. So, I was at Rose City Comic Con last.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Most of the people that went there did pretty good. I didn't. Part of the reason was I couldn't sell T-shirts because I was in an Artist Alley booth, and they want people who sell T-shirts to be over in the vendors area, and that significantly impacted the amount of income I made. Also, I went and stayed in a more upgrade hotel than normal because my wife wanted to be in a separate bed. Even then, I was snoring so loudly the people in the next room were thumping the walls and waking her up. So, however, my friend Travis Bundy, what he does is he gets an Airbnb that's nearby and then Ubers over to the convention, and he reduced his stay, the cost of his stay, in half.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, he pays like maybe $90 for a night for him and his girlfriend at the Airbnb. And I think his entire cost for Ubering around for those 3 days was like $30. He uses Uber a great deal because he enjoys a nice bar hop. So
So did he find any new pubs that he liked?
I think he went back to a lot of the. I think he took it easy this time, and just went to only about 6 of his regular places.
I was trying to get a feel for this because you always tell me that if I want to get him for a CNW, I need to bribe him with beer. But at the same time, it sounds like his standards are a little too high for the U district.
Oh, I'm sure that he can point out some nice microbrewery places in the U district.
Uh-huh.
But have you contacted Colin, the guy whose contact information I sent you last week?
Not yet, because we have some, but we finally got this person who runs the push pill pull for this month, and I mean next month.
Well, I would suggest you contact him and get him set up for a couple months out. That way you won't have to sweat it and he can plan for it.
Okay.
Don't wait until the last minute, Bill.
Right. Yeah, because interesting as Larry's microcomics are, I don't like doing them as a last resort every single time. They're almost his. Well, I mean, to be fair, they're better than the wheel. It's getting to the point where every time I say we're doing the wheel, it scares people off.
So don't do the wheel. Do something else.
That's what I did. I did Larry's microcomics.
Like our group is doing this thing where you remember the back page of Mad Magazine when it would be unfolded, and then you would fold it up and it'd be something else and different. Yeah. Well, we're kind of doing the reverse of that, where you fold something up and it's innocent when it's all folded up, but when you pull it out, it's something surprising.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, right?
Al Jaffe was brilliant with those.
So I found a video online, and I posted the video on our as sort of like part of the description, and people are checking out, and they're getting lots of clever ideas that way. So I'm hoping that to get a fairly nice turnout. That'll be later this month. Another really fun idea that we've done and had tremendous amounts of success is win, lose, or claw, or win, lose, or draw, doing a win, lose, or draw game. And people really enjoy those. You don't need a whole lot of talent to participate.
Are you doing this at the table?
At what? At the comic book convention?
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me. No, not at the table. This is at a drawing group that we hold monthly.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh.
And we do like 1 month we'll draw on money, and we'll do hobo dollars. That's a fairly popular one. So it takes you need the right materials to draw on money. Other times we'll do mashups, like very similar to the wheel that Bill said, except that we don't spin stuff there. We plan it out ahead of time, like, say, your favorite, the cover artwork of your favorite record, but done with Muppet characters.
Oh, cool.
And another thing we came up with was you would pull out of a hat superhero names, but you would have to do the origin story of a different superhero in the drawing. Like I pulled out Thor and Ghost Rider. So doing a Thor Ghost Rider knockoff was kind of fun. let's see. We also play telephone, where you're given 2 pieces of paper. On one piece of paper is a description of what you're supposed to draw. And so let's say RoboCop zombie was one description. and then the person would draw their version of RoboCop as a zombie. The next person would then look at the picture and write a description of it, pass that description to the next person. The next person then reads that description, whatever that might be, and then draws what the description is. Another thing like would be the Titanic in the desert. Now, the description of Titanic in the desert, after it went through 8 different derisions, you still had the 2 major elements. There was the Titanic, and it was in the desert. RoboCop zombie, however, the end image turned out to be a portrait of a black basketball player with a gold medal champion ring. And I don't know, it went wildly off base.
Does this involve alcohol by chance?
No, it doesn't. But what happens is you don't show the illustrations until it's made a complete round on the table, and then you show the illustrations, and everybody just laughs their heads off.
Yeah.
So that's a really fun game. And if you promote the games ahead of time with some fun visuals or things that were done last time, people get a big hoot. It tends to draw more people in. We've had some massive failures, though. Like over the summer, when it was really hot, people just knew that the venue had no air conditioning and would be really hot as well. So a lot of people just weren't coming because they didn't want to boil. So what can you do?
So how does one find groups like that? Is it just searching on Facebook, or do you do like meetup posting and stuff?
Tinder?
Tinder?
Tacoma's actually, it's pretty fortunate. In Tacoma, we have a listserv that all the artists in town subscribe to. And all that listserv does is talk about various events and when they're happening and job announcements. Nothing else is allowed on the board, on the listserv. And that has been an extremely effective way for people to find out about the meetings. We also have a Facebook group page that helps out. We also have a blog. We promote things on the blog. But more than anything, it is the local listserv that pushes it and introduces it to a new audience.
Mm.
So how do people find out about that?
Normally, when there's a new artist in town, they call up the art commission, or they talk. Once they find another artist in town, they'll say, "Hey, what's the scene like here?" That artist is already on the listserv, and we'll tell them about the listserv. It works very strongly by word of mouth. That's how I found out about it. Somebody told me. But I know that a lot of other people do go ahead and look at Meetup.
I've been not having as much luck with Meetup, which has been having me seriously rethink about it the last time they sent me a bill.
Yeah, that's why we haven't been doing it, is because of the bill. There was a gal that had taken it upon herself to, she was paying a Meetup bill, and she figured she might as well put in as many organizations as she could on it. But then she contacted us, say, "Oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. If you want to take it over, you'll have to pay." And I said, "Well, nope, we're not going to pay." So like again, the listserv does such an excellent job here. It's hardly necessary. One of the things we did find was that the places that we have the locations where we have our venues, which is it's been a bookstore for a while, but before then it was a comic book store, that if we let them know what our themes are going to be several months out in advance, like 3 or 4, they can make a point of having it in their promotional materials. And that will bring in extra people. Like the bookstore that we're at now, they always include our meeting time, even if we don't have a description of what we're going to be doing that week or month.
I definitely think I need to make more effort to get involved with the Phoenix community. I know there's artists out here, but so far I've tried to attend like AIGA events, and that's usually just graphic designers. And
yeah, I know what you mean. I do all the AIGA snooze events just sort of to practice my networking, but
did you say snooze or schmooze?
Snooze. But it's sort of like most of them, when they say design, it's barely one step up from programming. To the point where I rarely not getting into the places are so loud you can barely hear yourself think.
What you may want to do, Ian, is look in your area for the keywords drink and draw.
I did that, and I missed the last one, and I tried to sign up for, updates on when the next one is. It's just, it doesn't seem to be a regular event. It's kind of few and far between, but I'm hopefully going to get in on the next one whenever that happens.
Yeah, I was a member of one for a while, but that one ended badly. They claimed I was too aggressive and never explained what they meant by that.
Ouch.
And then they said I was too loud. And then they said I was loud. I'm going, it's in a freaking bar. It's how.
Well, that's just hurtful.
Yes.
Now, Ian, if you really want to do something about it, you could always start your own.
Yeah. Kind of, when I started my business, I was just like all gung-ho. I was volunteering, and I was, raising my hand all the time. And then I just realized I don't have time to actually sleep. and I it took me about a good year, and just like, I don't want to say I burnt out, but I'm a little bit more disciplined on, what I try to jump into. So.
Yeah, because I've been running Cartoonist Northwest for the last year and a half, for what that's worth.
So who have you put an eye on to replace you, Bill?
You know, at the moment, I haven't been thinking about it. I'm more than happy. I'm sort of figuring that I figure I'll be rubber stamped in again this year, but
I think you have to start planning on stepping down at some point. Otherwise, what will happen is they'll start relying too heavily on you.
mm-hmm.
And by the time you do leave, no one will be there to replace you. Like what happened with that so often happened with the guild.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things in my little drawing group on the Claw, we have it mandatory that people cannot serve longer than 2 years. And then they have to take at least 1 year off. And it forces new leadership into the positions. We have also 4 leaders, and rather than having those leaders all be replaced every 2 years, we replace 2 of them every year. That way there's always somebody new to teach, or rather somebody in a position who's been around for a while to teach the new guys what to do. For anyone out there who's listening and thinking about starting their own drawing groups or what have you. And it's hard to get people together to do drawings in the summertime. It's a lot easier in the wintertime.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more than happy to get somebody else to do it, but at the moment, there's times where I feel like I'm not so much C&W's president as I am the coordinator of the hospice group.
The hospice group?
Yes.
Is this a drawing group?
No.
Oh, jeez.
It's a euphemism for I think the group is dying.
Yeah, community is, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but, you know, for an artist, it's kind of like, you know, keeping you alive for the most part. I mean, otherwise you're just some guy in a studio who doesn't see daylight, you know? And
oh, definitely. I always, one of the reasons I make a point of signing up for as many events as possible because, no, seriously, the fine line between working in a home office / studio and being a hermit is so narrow that you can barely see it.
20 years ago when I was living in Seattle, this is back in the heyday when there were lots of agencies around and the marketplace was a lot different before the internet really took over. There were tons of I could go to at least 3 different organizations every month for a nice luncheon.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have a nice lunch, you'd get out of the office, you'd have something to eat, you'd be at a table, you could schmooze with the people around you before and after lunch, then listen to whatever that meeting topic was. There was some of these groups are still in Seattle. There's the ASMP, the American Society of Media Photographers. There was the Graphic Artists Guild, the AIGA, and also the ad federations. And when I moved to Tacoma, I was really happy because there was the Tacoma Ad Federation, but it was pretty much being run and held together by this one agency. And then after a while, that one agency decided that they didn't want to be in charge anymore. And the Ad Federation was a really tough group. You had to bring in sponsorship in order to be a member. And if you didn't, then you couldn't be part of the group. It provided a lot of really fun events and got their funding so that the luncheons were. The hardest part about doing an event now is that people cannot afford doing a luncheon. You have to pay a minimum for a table, and if you don't get those seats filled, you're stuck paying for the meals on those tables.
Oh yeah, I mean, back when the guild was mostly doing that, we were so far in the hole.
But because they had sponsorship, that was pretty much taken care of. When I first joined the guild, we used to meet at a place called the Swedish Club, and it was $7.50 for lunch.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, it was cheap. You'd have a room full of 50 people, showing up. Not uncommon for it to be sold out if you didn't RSVP. But then the people started complaining that the Swedish Club wasn't anything more than a slice of ham on a croissant. And they wanted someplace a little bit more upscale. So I went to some place that was, like $9 and then $12 and then $15 and then $25, which was fine when you're meeting at the Space Needle or the Columbia Tower Club because, hey, that's nice places to meet.
Yeah.
But as you're doing that, you're getting lower and lower attendance because some people just couldn't put the money out. But I really missed those luncheons.
They were nice, especially the ones in the Columbia Tower. I remember I still remember what was otherwise a relatively unspectacular day, so you couldn't see the mountains that day. But I suddenly realized I'm watching something's a speck below me, which I suddenly realize it has, and I see the white on the tail, and I suddenly realize I'm looking down on a bald eagle soaring.
One of my funnest times was being there, and you were eye level with a blimp that was going by. That's one tall building.
It seems like those types of events, they're not happening for artists, but over here in Arizona, they're happening all the time for entrepreneurs. There's just so many resources and groups and like free, breakfasts and lunch things going on if you're starting a business. There's just people are clamoring to get you to show up.
Oh, there's a group you may want to consider joining. It's called A Million Cups of Coffee.
Yeah, A Million Cups. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, I found that was really helpful. I was getting work from going to A Million Cups.
Huh.
And then the group that was in charge of it kind of died and thinned out here. But if you've got a strong group like that meeting on a regular basis, yeah, I would go to A Million Cups in a heartbeat.
Yeah, they were meeting at my local library, and I actually wanted to volunteer for them, and they were all excited because they weren't really marketing themselves that great. And I was like, well, I could bring in some graphic design and help you guys with social media and stuff like that. And they're ready to jump on that. And then one of the organizers here really wanted me to modify the Million Cups logo to be specific for Phoenix. And I was just like, okay, well, that raises a bunch of legal flags, and I need to look at whether or not I'm allowed to do that and everything. And it turned into like an argument, and I was just like, listen, I just can't modify a logo. It's copyrighted. It's a trademark. There's rules behind this, and the guy thought I was just like trying to do something. I don't know. Maybe he thought I was trying to like ask them for money or something, and I was just like, no, I'm doing this for free. But after I finally put him in his place and said, I sent him like the website for the Million Cups organizers, and it specifically said, you cannot modify our logo without permission and stuff like that.
Right.
Like he tried to play it off. He's like, okay, well, you're new, you don't understand how things work, but fine, we'll do it this way. And I was like, I do not want to volunteer for this organization anymore. It's just like, if I have to be hanging out with this guy, it's not going to be worth it. So unfortunately, that kind of soured me to showing up to the meetups and everything. That was about a year ago. Otherwise, if there's a Million Cups in your area, I highly recommend checking them out. Just don't volunteer for them, because you don't know who you're going to be working with. So.
So I went to the movie Predator this weekend.
Okay, so did it live up to the hype?
The friend I go with, who I will admit, sometimes he suffers from movie afterglow even more than I do. He gave it an 8.5. I'm willing to give it a solid 7.
Okay.
Which, in my wife's eyes, means that it was either a 5 or a 4. So, my wife thinks that I tend to grade a little too generously.
Well, do you recommend seeing it in the theaters or wait until it's like streaming on Netflix?
I enjoyed it in the theaters. The reason I would recommend it in the theaters over Netflix is because a lot of it is filmed in the dark. The original, and this is something I have a pet peeve against with horror movies, you don't have to film everything in the dark, because when you try to watch it on the video screen, all you get is black glare. It's not as, if you're in the theater, that black is wonderfully rich, and you can see the nuance because it's light reflecting off of a surface. So you're capturing that feel, those subtle shifts, that little movement in the shadow. But if you're trying to do that on a TV, you're not capturing that because the shadow, the whole black is being illuminated, and it doesn't get the desired effect. So I would say, if you want to see it with a better effect, see it in the theater. But if you're kind of going, oh, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of the Predator, then me, I've seen every bit of the franchise, so it's a fairly easy choice for me to decide to go.
How does it rate against the other films? I mean, it's not like better than.
Oh, it's better than some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the better Predator friend. When they did the Predators film a couple years back,
yeah,
they improved upon they notched up the quality of the work that was being done inside the franchise. And so I think people realized that there was something more, pretty marketable there. They had a strong cult following that could be exploited as well.
Oh, interesting. I'd heard that had not done well in the box office.
Predators?
Yeah.
When I went there, it was for a midnight showing. The midnight showing had to be moved to another theater because there were so many people coming in to see it. And again, anyone who shows up for a midnight showing is going to be a fanboy.
Right.
So that might have skewed my opinion.
You know, I always feel that a movie is different if there's like a really enthusiastic audience in there.
Yep.
Like it changes things. Like
Make it
Oh,
more fun.
I totally agree. That's one of the things I like about going to. There's an event that happens here in Tacoma called Friday Night Frights,
Mm-hmm.
and I've showed some of the poster artwork I've done for that event before. But yeah, the fanboys turn out for those movies, and you get this even on a really trashy, horrible movie like say Jack Frost,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
I always get that mixed up. Is that the horror one or the one with Michael Keaton?
This is the horror one. Who would go? Yes, definitely the horror one, where the snow on the ground and on the rooftops is actually rolled cotton because it's the wrong time of the year. That the snowman himself is made up of rolled cotton. I mean, they weren't fooling anybody, and they knew it from the get-go. So they just played off of that and just went for the cheese. I have yet to see the Michael Keaton one. But even with a movie bad like that, you get an audience. The last who's really enthusiastic and they're cheering and laughing at all the appropriate places. This month's, or it's going to be this Friday, is going to be Zombieland, and it's going to, yeah, everyone's pretty excited about that.
Cool. I should add that to my list for this month. That's one that I've keep missing, even though I'm pretty sure it's something I'd like.
Just watch for the Bill Murray scene. He's my favorite guy.
Spoiler.
Sorry.
So I just got finished watching the first batch of my horror choices for the season.
What are those, Bill?
A Girl Walks Home at Night Alone and Let Me In.
You mean A Girl Walks Home Alone at night,
yes.
Or A Girl Walks Home Alone at night?
Yes.
It was pretty good. In case you guys haven't seen it, that's a pretty damn good movie.
Very stylized, but in a good way. And Let Me In was a pretty good adaptation.
Of Let the Right One In?
Yes. I still very much like Let the Right One In better, but it holds up very well. It was funny, I'd been hearing the criticism of people complaining about it being derivative and going, it's an adaptation, of course it's derivative.
So have you guys seen either one of those films? Or is it just me and Bill?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
I've seen it. Let the Right One In. I've seen the original Danish one. I guess it's Danish.
Swedish.
Or Swedish, yeah. I love the original one. I really did.
It really got to me because I was living in Uppsala about the time it takes place. And on top of that, the apartment complex in Stockholm it takes place in was virtually a boilerplate copy of the one I was living in Uppsala, so I could picture the Morse code bit perfectly. So it made it, for me, it made it almost a Swedish Stephen King film. I just also put the audio book for the original on hold, so I'm looking forward to listen to that.
Well, guys, I got to take off, but it was cool hanging out with you as always.
Oh, it is 5:30, isn't it? Time
Yeah.
for me to do some dishes. Let me do the sign off.
Okay.
You have been watching another episode of Epic Sketch Time. We meet every Monday at 4:30 to 5:30 Pacific Time. If you'd like to join our group, there is a link in the descriptions to sign up. And gentlemen, I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.